about, but also we talk about old favorites, and I think we have a couple of those today, actually. Any books that we've read that we loved and we want to share with everybody. And we have a lot of fantastic books from our experts today, lots to talk about. But before we do that, and before I introduce everybody, I want to tell you what's going on in the actual store coming up over the next week. Tonight, Wednesday, October 29th at 6:30 p.m., we are welcoming Shirin Behzadi to the store, and she will be discussing and signing The Unexpected CEO, My Journey from Gas Station Cashier to Billion-Dollar CEO. You don't want to miss that. That's tonight, the 29th at 6:30 p.m. And then coming up on Thursday, which is tomorrow, October 30th at 6:30 p.m., we will be having Jennifer Fisher at the store, and she will be discussing and signing Trust Your Gut, Anti-Inflammatory Recipes for Feeling Unstoppable. And joining her in conversation will be Catherine Power. So that's going to be tomorrow night, the 30th at 6:30 p.m. at the store. And I do want to preview here just for a second. I'll be talking about this every week coming up until the event. But since we have our reps here with us, I want to talk to you about Rep Night at Diesel. And that is, for the first time, our inaugural run. We will be having 6 of our most fabulous reps, publisher sales reps, and 3 of them are here today who will be there on the 20th of November. So 3 weeks. It's coming right up. It's the week before Thanksgiving on the 20th at 6:30 p.m. And we will be having 6 fabulous reps, and they will be giving you the inside scoop, the skinny, on all of the really hot titles for the season. And you can basically come to the store, listen to these guys talk, and you will have your complete holiday shopping list done, I guarantee. It's really fun. It's informative, it's fun, it's the inside scoop. You don't want to miss this. However, you might if you don't buy a ticket, because seating is really limited for this, and we are expecting a big crowd. So go to our website, www.dieselbookstore.com. You will find our page there. You can go ahead and reserve your seat and your ticket. And when you do that, you get entered into the raffle as soon as you come into the store, and we've got all kinds of giveaways and prizes for that special night. So I'll talk about that again. But we're very excited. So check that out for Rep Night on November 20th. All righty. Let's get to it now and talk about the books that everybody's got waiting for you. Let me introduce everybody. We have joining us today Dave Ehrlich from Chronicle Books. We have Julia Callahan from Hachette. And after a long absence, we have, well, he was taking it easy. We've got Tom Benton from Penguin.
Happy to be back.
Yeah, happy to have you back, Tom. And then also we haven't seen Lynn for a while. Lynn is at the actual store, our bookseller Lynn. I'm very happy to see you, Lynn, as well. Okay, now that we have everybody all squared away, let's get going. Dave, why don't we start with you?
Let's jump in. Thank you so much for having me. Good to be back. I'm going to start today, as usual, whenever I can, with a beautiful cookbook. This came out about 2 weeks ago, and this is called Dobre. The subtitle is Baking from Poland and Beyond. And this comes to us from Laurel. I'm not going to try to mangle this here. Laurel Kratochvila. I think I did a good job there. She is a James Beard finalist for her previous book, which I need to look up, which is New European Baking. That was a 2023 James Beard Award finalist. It is photographed by the amazing Malgosia Minta. She's a celebrated food journalist and photographer who also worked with Laurel on the previous book. And this is just a beautiful deep dive into the history, the culture, the flavors, and all the amazing diversity of baking from Poland. This has a really interesting backstory. When Laurel was 23, she moved to the Czech Republic. Um, and this is interesting, but she loves pickles, and she loves a sour and a savory salty pickle. Interestingly, all the pickles in the Czech Republic are sweet. They're always made with sugar, and there's no savory pickles. And this drove her absolutely crazy when she got there. She was dating a gentleman from the Czech Republic who said, I know exactly what to do. We have to cross the border over into Poland and find you sour pickles and salty pickles. And as she crossed the border into Poland, which I think is like an hour from where they were in the Czech Republic, so they got their bucket of pickles and everything was great and peachy keen. And then she discovered a bakery in Poland. And when she walks in, this is in the introduction, she walks in and she realizes the unbelievable variety of cakes, of danishes, of streusels, of tea cookies. I'm going to go through and rattle off names of recipes here, but it touches her and it connects with her because it reminds her of her own Jewish heritage and Jewish heritage baking that she grew up with in America, made by grandparents. And that wasn't in the Czech Republic while she lived there. So she began to go into Poland more and more, delve into the world of Polish baking, and then try her hand at doing it herself. That was 15 years ago. She wound up marrying the gentleman that took her across the border to find the pickles, which I think is very, very sweet. And she went on, she has a bakery. She went on to do this other book. She has a remarkable pedigree. And basically, I'm going to give you a quick run through what this book consists of. There's sections devoted to breads and rolls, yeasted buns. There are slab cakes, layer cakes, and bunts, of course, like you see on the cover. There are cookies, small bites, and wafers. There are meringues, cheesecakes, and also extra fillings and toppings to make. And really excellent, per usual, step-by-step diagrams, rolling doughs, creating the perfect sourdough, which I feel like everybody should know how to do by now. The thing on the cover is a beautiful yeasted saffron and orange glazed Easter bundt cake. Absolutely stunning, and it's a great image for the cover. You can make plum butter carnival donuts. You can make, this is my favorite in the book, and I'm going to have to get someone to make this for me, this unbelievable chocolate and whipped cream Warsaw cake. Look at that beauty with that ganache. I love a shiny ganache. You should be able to see yourself in a ganache. That glossy. I know, high bar, Deborah. But jam and poppy seed sponge sandwiches. So there's things like small bites, there's larger cakes, there's bigger projects, there's simpler projects, there's things that take a little more time. Just the vast, the span in here of the flavors, the ingredients. And then she goes through, each recipe and talks about the origin of it, the history of it, where she first encountered it. So there's some, her writing is just really, really engaging and really sweet. And when she talks about the bakers that she met in Poland in her travels, she gives their backstories. She talks about the kind of, again, the inception of these recipes, what the tradition is, and the heritage of them. It's just a super beautiful book. Really nice location photography, a really sweet tone. And it's just kind of about connecting with your heritage, but then also discovering this new cuisine that seems to just keep unfolding and just seems to keep offering up new riches and new flavors and tastes. I think this is a really unique book. The design is beautiful. It's got this cool kind of deco font treatment. There's these like really excellent like visual spreads throughout that are super kind of modernist and very, very pop and cool. I think it's a gorgeous book. $35 hardcover, out now, and you've got it. Dobre.
It's gorgeous. I love when I of course I love me a baking book, especially one of Dave's. And I have this book, and when I first started looking, I was like, okay, Polish baking seems very specific. And then I opened it and I looked at it, and they're great. It's different. If you are a lover of cookbooks and especially baking books, which I am, and you do a lot of baking, even if you don't actually, if you're just sort of experimenting and looking for something new, you see that a lot of the baking books are a lot of the same things over and over again with slightly different variations here or there that you could probably think of yourself. I mean, there's a lot of sameness in the baking books. This one is not. They're recognizable. It's not crazy, but they're different recipes. It goes it's like deep cuts basically of baking, and they're really interesting. And some of the cakes, are made with yeast, which we don't normally see in our cookbooks. They're just baking powder cakes basically, but yeasted cakes are really great also in a whole new avenue. So I love this book, Dave. I think it's great, especially for someone who likes cookbooks and has had a lot of cookbooks, but you want to get them something really new so that they can make different and delicious things for you. So thank you, Dave. All right, Julia.
Okay. Well, my first one, I have a cookbook on my list too, but I'm not going to start with it. My first one is very California book. And this one is The Water Remembers by Amy Bowers-Cordalis, My Indigenous Families Fight to Save a River and a Way of Life. So this book is, I often think of it as like the update that we so need to a book like Cadillac Desert. Perhaps you, unlike me, did not have a father who made you read Cadillac Desert in high school, whose favorite movie was Chinatown, and who talked about water politics in California basically nonstop. If you need any sort of refresher on California water politics, this is a great one. This is a great book to start with. This book is about the tribe, the Requa tribe, which Amy Bowers-Cordalis is a part of, and they are one of the tribes at the center of getting the Klamath River in Northern California undammed. There's been some news about it very recently, where as soon as they undammed the river, the salmon came back and started spawning in the river. So it's this really great story of both this political sort of achievement, and also of talking about how Indigenous people and Native Americans particularly can help us, particularly here in the West, with some of the water issues that we deal with. So I think that it's such a great book for thinking about how to move forward with California's water. California is such a boom or bust sort of water economy, if you will. And I think, we've to our own detriment, we've ignored sort of Indigenous wisdom about how California's water works. So this book, I think, is really a step in the right direction of thinking about it and thinking about how to move forward and negotiate sort of California's water in a way that really allows the land to do what it's supposed to do, and not what we sort of like try to beat it into submission for a century to do. And perhaps that wasn't the best way to go about it. So this book, I think, like I said, a great update to something like Cadillac Desert, but also just a really wonderful look at, taking care of the land we live on, taking care of the areas that, provide us with food and with recreation and with all sorts of different things that we need to like live a good life. So this book is really a delight, and you'll learn something when you read it.
Water, I mean, it's so critical to us here in California. I mean, in general, but specifically California. And if you haven't grown up, I think if you grow up here, you have more of a sense of it. But I didn't grow up here, but I came here a long time ago. But it's really, you realize at a certain point, wow, we live in a desert. We live in a desert. There's not a lot of water here. And then you dig a little deeper and find out the politics of the whole thing. And it's fascinating, alarming, and really interesting as well. And I think you make a great point about ignoring the centuries of wisdom and understanding how things work. So a really great addition, this book for sure. And
Definitely.
yeah, fascinating. Thank you, Julia.
Well, and as I told the New York office sort of as this book was coming, I said, the thing about California water is that if California runs out of water, the rest of the country is also going to feel the effects of that. So
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
know maybe you don't live in California, but you should care about California's water issues. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, where does the water come from? Oh, wow, the Colorado River.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Julia. Tom Benton.
All right. Because I've been away a while, I have some big books to talk to you about some of them came out while I was away. So starting with Thomas Pynchon's Shadow Ticket. So I struggled to think how best to talk about Thomas Pynchon. These books come along every, if we're lucky, 10 years or so, and they just appear out of the blue. We don't have any warning, really. I've had booksellers who over the last 8 to 10 years who will ask me, is there a new Pynchon? Is there a new Pynchon? And you never know. It's a complete secret and surprise when we spring a new Thomas Pynchon on the world. And so here we have Shadow Ticket. And it's, in a way, I think of it as like the purest kind of publishing, because Pynchon is that rarity, an impossible figure to contemplate today. An author who doesn't do media, doesn't participate in marketing, doesn't have his picture taken, does not play any games about publishing, and we haven't seen a picture of him in 60 years. And it's cool. I mean, I love that and so that's why it's been fascinating. I've now sold 4 of the Pynchon novels. There was Against the Day, which was a big tome. And then the last 3, there was Inherent Vice and Bleeding Edge, and now Shadow Ticket. These 3 late period Pynchon are they're genre exercises. They feature a private eye. So I can't speak for Thomas Pynchon, but it seems like right now we have a trilogy of private eye novels. Inherent Vice was set in Southern California, which he did live in the South Bay in the 50s, I think. So that was very, very much a novel that came out of the world that he knew. Bleeding Edge was set just after 9/11. And now we have Shadow Ticket, which takes us back to the 1930s, early 1930s. And so I'll give you a little bit of what we say about it, because we don't do galleys. We don't let anyone read it ahead of time. So, but this is what we were able to say initially. And if you know Pynchon's work, his names are always playful, hilarious, unique. Hicks McTaggart is the star of the book. A one-time strike breaker turned private eye thinks he's found job security until he gets sent out on what would be a routine case, locating and bringing back the heiress of a Wisconsin cheese fortune, who's taking a mind to go wandering. By the time Hicks catches up with her, he'll find himself entangled with Nazis, Soviet agents, British counterspies, swing musicians, practitioners of the paranormal, outlaw motorcyclists, and the troubles that come with each of them. So he's taking us, his character Hicks, from Wisconsin, where there are Nazis and Nazi sympathizers, to Germany. And it just seems to me it is not a coincidence that Thomas Pynchon is writing about Nazis. I think there is something there about what is happening in our country, and because he's always been on to the structures, the systems that keep us unfree, not free. And so his books are always about how his characters can try to live freely under powerful control of the system. But I also want to emphasize these books, Inherent Vice, Bleeding Edge, and now Shadow Ticket, these are fun books. This late period Pynchon is hilarious, rollicking in a certain way. It's really, really good stuff. But there's always a deeper purpose. And I love watching reviewers struggle to review him because all of his books have been reviewed like mixed reviews at the time, and then in 10, 20, 30 years later they're considered like important classics as the world has caught up to Thomas Pynchon. So it's exciting, it's thrilling to have a new Pynchon. The Washington Post had this I think is exactly right. Of all living novelists, Pynchon may have the most distinct voice that has proved largely inimitable. It's not just that no one else writes quite like Pynchon, it's that no one even tries, because he is a singular voice. We don't have this kind of writer much anymore, I think. And it's thrilling to watch him play with form. At the age of 88, he is still doing the Pynchon thing. And as I say, he doesn't participate in marketing, but this is a marketing moment for Pynchon, because the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, which is fantastic, One Battle After Another, is based on a Pynchon novel, Vineland, very loosely, very just inspired by. But that movie feels like Pynchon, and you can really see it in this novel as well. This character's on the move, trying to stay free, as I'll put it. So, Shadow Ticket, Thomas Pynchon, for the holidays.
Wow. Gravity's Rainbow was over 50 years ago.
Yeah. And his he's been writing, I think I looked it up, 63 was the first novel. So he's been writing over 60 years.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Gravity's Rainbow was one of those, when I was in college, like people followed you around just like reading it,
Yeah.
like out loud. Listen to this.
Right.
So he's always been right in there. So great. I haven't read it yet. For me, he's always been like challenging, but in a good way. So it's like you gotta set aside some time. But interesting to note that he's like more playful as he, as he is.
Yes.
Yeah, as he's gotten older. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in the last 15 years, these 3 books are very playful. They're funny.
Right.
And his books probably have always been funny, but
right. Right. Yeah. Well, maybe we're just noticing it more, right?
But I feel like this is we're living in a Pynchon world now.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, that's true. Right. We've caught up to him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. All right, Lynn. I'm waiting patiently over there.
So the first book I want to talk about, recently read, is the new Elizabeth George, A Slowly Dying Cause. And I don't know if you've read Elizabeth George or not, but she has, I think, 22 books. I looked through last night. I read everything she's ever written. It was one of those, once I started reading it, then I did deep dive and went back. And now I just wait for every 12 to 18 months for her to have a book that comes out. I love her writing. Her books are procedural. There is a detective, Lindley, who is in 90% of her books, and his sidekick, Barbara Havers, again, in 90% of the books. And in this book, they show up in a very different light, and I loved it. Procedural, Elizabeth George's books to me are like watching a 6-part BBC detective procedural. They're long and they're very thorough. So this one has a lot of outside characters. She introduces so many new characters and a very interesting, violent, hideous murder. And I really, I'm a big fan of hers. All these new characters, she really does a deep dive into showing you who they are and their past and their present and their history and what, you really get to know each character. It's a huge book in pages. So she does take her time. There's something about that makes me really connect with the book. I wouldn't say it's a cozy mystery. I would not say that at all, because it's she tends to be very violent, but her books, and especially this one, really soothe me. I really enjoy. She lulls you into a whole different world. And for this book, I was there the entire time. I was in the Cotswolds. I was, other places in little towns in northern England, and I was just completely absorbed. So Elizabeth George sells herself, but I have to say this one in particular, I really, really liked. I highly recommend it. If you're looking for just a really smart procedural mystery, she's got it down. She's an old hand at it, and it's never the same thing twice. I do have to say, she has reoccurring characters. It's never the same story twice. It's never the same mystery twice. I have yet to have guessed who the actual criminal is, and I pride myself on being able to guess. But in 22 books, I've never guessed. So anyway, highly recommend.
That's a reason right there to recommend. If you're one of those people who can see it coming usually, and then you can't, then that's great. So let me just ask you one question, Lynn. There are people who haven't read Elizabeth George. They're out there. And it is really like a comfort zone, like getting into your nice murder book to avoid all the rest of it. But a lot of series writers also, you can pick them up. I mean, there are the purists who it's like, no, I got to start at the beginning of a series. But can you? I mean, is it okay? Like, could we just pick this up if we hadn't read her before?
Absolutely. All of her books, although they have the same characters, are all standalones.
Great.
So it doesn't matter which one you pick up, where you start.
That is even better. Excellent. Thank you so much, Lynn.
You're welcome.
All right, Dave, back to you.
Okay. Oh, all right. Thank you. I have been waiting to talk about this book for months and months. I was very excited about it when it was announced. Finally got a finished copy, and I've been waiting until it has been released, and it just came out. Oh, it is a beast. This is called Musik, M-U-S-I-K, by Bentrej, B-E-N-T-R-E-J. 1960s photographs of musicians. A little background here. Bentrej, in the mid-60s, 65 to be exact, was a 25-year-old Danish photographer working for a newspaper, and he was sent on assignment to cover the first ever tour and appearance of the Rolling Stones in Scandinavia, in Denmark, in that entire region. They had not come there yet, and it was their sort of debut jaunt through the area. He had covered the Beatles landing at Copenhagen Airport the year before, so he was familiar with pop music and familiar with these kind of new rock bands coming out of England. He had not met or seen the Stones before, went to cover them, and was immediately sucked into their incredible world, and became actually very close with Brian Jones and became a very good friend of Brian Jones for just a few years. This, of course, gave him access to not only these intimate moments with the Stones. He went on tour with them, was kind of, what's the right word, sucked into their entourage as happens with like the mystique in the world and the kind of notoriety around the Stones. And he became an insider. So basically, and the book is not all the Stones, but he gets these remarkable shots. Like, look at this Keith Richards photo. He gets these really quiet moments with the Stones. In fact, there's Bent right there. He's famous for his very dashing mustache, which was not a common thing at the time in the rock scene. And so basically, there's a Beatles section at the beginning, and there's photos from that Copenhagen Airport appearance that caused a huge phenomenon. But to me, the main focus of the book are the Stones photographs, Again, you get these like really quiet moments. Brian Jones in this hotel room, Keith on the phone. And then he gets also some, remarkable live performances and great live photos. Look at this picture of Charlie Watts. What a little baby. They're so young in these photos. It's amazing. So basically this opens doors for him. He winds up covering Dylan, Chuck Berry, and there's a whole section on the Kinks. Full disclosure, I do like the Stones more than the Beatles, and I might like the Kinks. I do. I'm just going to say it. Here it is. And I might like the Kinks more than anybody. I think maybe primarily the Kinks are like one of my very favorite 60s rock bands. I can't find the Kinks photos, but man, they're killer. He hangs out with The Who, gets these like, the famous like Pete Townsend windmill shots. And he just gets access by like befriending these musicians and getting to like experience these moments with them on tour. That these aren't the photos you see of these bands all the time. These aren't like the typical Dylan photos you've seen from like Don't Look Back, or from that era, or those kind of other films you've seen. These are all these amazing shots that he got because he befriended these bands and he was allowed into their shadowy, amazing cloistered worlds. It's just a killer book. It's 12 by 12, so it mimics the size of a record album. I took it off because I thought it would glare. I sit in front of a window when I do this, but it has this beautiful screened plastic cover that goes on it. I thought it would glare too much. Just an absolutely spectacular big book. When I finally saw the finished book and I took it out of the box from UPS, I was kind of like, oh my God, it is the size of a record album. It almost feels like a box set, that I own, because it is 12 by 12 and it's a big fat thing. So man, it's just dazzling. I love this era of music. There's a lot of great writing about his career. There's a quick anecdotal side story where later in his friendship with Brian Jones, he was hanging out with Brian and Anita Pallenberg, and he was on his way to photograph Nancy Sinatra in London. Brian spiked Bent's wine with acid, unbeknownst to him, and sent him on an unwelcome trip. And that actually ended their friendship, and also stopped him from photographing bands. It was sort of like a pivot point where he was so traumatized by the drug experience, the unwelcome drug experience, that he sort of pulled away. And he did not hang out and associate so much with rock bands anymore. And it wasn't a malicious thing. I think Brian thought it was going to be fun. And as some of us know, being slipped acid in your wine against your wishes is maybe not fun. So yeah, use that for the call out clip this week. Music. Amazing book. I have plenty of people I'm going to give this to, and I just think it's a spectacular rock book. We're doing 3 rock books this season. We've got the Beatles anthology coming back out after 25 years. I talked about the Grateful Dead book already. This is maybe my favorite and the one I kind of relate the most to of the 3 music books we've got on the docket for this season. So really killer. Cool Christmas gift.
Those are some heavy hitters, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really. This is gorgeous. It reminds me a little. I'm reading the Cameron Crowe book, The Uncool, which really highly recommend. It's so great. He's such a great writer, but he also talks about having the access around this. Well, I mean, his story is different. He fell into it when he was like a baby, and and he just wrote it. But there's some photos in there. He had his friend photographer with him, and there's some photos of Greg Allman, like really haunting. These photos of like early, and you get to see it's real insight. It's the Wayback Machine, right? And this is like 60 years ago or whatever. Seeing how it was, and it puts it, even though there have been so many of these kinds of retrospectives with rock and roll, they're still playing the Stones, which is like kind of unbelievable in a way. But this great gift for your great grandparents, this book.
Yeah. Make me feel real old. And also
I'm younger than I am, Dave.
Yeah, but I love this music in this era. I think there's like a huge resurgence in Dylan interest, and the Dylan photos in here are killer because of the movie. And I think a lot of young people who are building their vinyl collections, I've noticed when I'm in record stores and I eavesdrop on people in record stores, like, what are they buying? So many young people are just absolutely smitten and thrilled.
Yeah.
obviously and understandably so with Dylan. So the Dylan content in this
Yeah.
too is, I think, timely.
Well, he is a Nobel laureate, right?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. All right. Thank you, Dave. Julia, back to you.
I feel like I have to quote Almost Famous, which is my second favorite movie of all time, directed by Cameron Crowe.
Such a great movie.
Well, when Jimmy Fallon's character in that movie says, if you think Mick Jagger is still going to be being a rock star when he's 50, and it was a joke when that movie came out in 2000 because he was still playing, and 25 years later, it's an even funnier joke. Anyway, so my next book. So my next book is called Pre-Code Essentials. Must-see cinema from Hollywood's untamed era, which is 1930 to 1934. So Running Press, which is one of the publishers at Hachette, has a collection from Turner Classic Movies, TCM. And this is the latest in that collection. And I'm like such an evangelist for these TCM books. Every single one of them is awesome, is beautiful, is impeccably researched. And also is accessible. But this is definitely a favorite of mine, these Code Essentials, because what I've learned as I've been selling this is not everyone knows what the code is. So if you don't, that's fine. The Hays Code was a code that started after 1934 to regulate Hollywood movies, because basically the government was about to get involved and start censoring movies because people thought that they were going to corrupt, the general public. But before that, there were all these movies that are like incredibly edgy and like forward thinking and progressive, and you have gay kisses and women, and you can see on the cover here women in pretty revealing lingerie for the time. And so this goes through a collection of these pre-code movies. I'll name a few. The book is dedicated to Barbara Stanwyck, as it should be, but it's like The Divorcee, Shanghai Express, Public Enemy, the original Scarface, what else? Gabriel Over the White House, King Kong, The Gold Diggers of 1933, I'm No Angel, which was, I believe, Mae West's first movie. These movies that include, women kissing each other, men kissing each other, that include interracial relationships, that include all of these things that Hollywood then cracked down on itself. And that actually we get the MPAA sort of comes after the Hays Code. So it comes out of that. But this is just a wonderful, it goes movie by movie. It talks about sort of like the edgier parts of the movie. It talks about what the movies are about. And it's a really great collection of these pre-code films. If you subscribe to Criterion Channel, they'll do a few times a year, they do these collections of like Paramount, pre-code Paramount or pre-code Columbia or whatever. And they're always great movies to watch. And like, they feel like they could have been made today, a lot of them. So just an awesome, and this one's a paperback. It's got French flaps. So it's like a nice gift book, but it's not too stocky for your bookshelf. This is Pre-Code Essentials by Kim Luperi and Danny Reed. And I think any film buff, this is a must and a delight. They're fun to dig into.
Dave, do you have a copy yet? No?
Do I need to send you one? Sorry.
No, that looks fantastic. I have loved those Criterion pre-code collections.
Yeah.
Each time they do them, they're fascinating movies.
Yeah,
I know.
This is a book for Dave as soon as you started talking about it. But actually, this is broader appeal. It is absolutely fascinating. I'm familiar a little bit with this, and I've read some on it. But it really is like incredible. If you're a person who watches old movies or know somebody who watches old movies, you see them going by and you see some of these pre-code films, they're amazing. They're like, wait,
incredible.
What? We're just so used to censorship and denial of things that actually happen. You know, that it's like phenomenal for us. But what a great book! What fun!
Yeah,
I
truly.
have to get a
Lots
copy
of lots of photos of Marlena Dietrich kissing other women
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this book.
And
So for
yeah.
that alone, yeah.
She was sort of known for that.
Can you imagine if the
Yes.
code hadn't happened, like where film would have? I love thinking about that. But also like
Yeah.
those restrictions made film noir. Those kind of parameters created like a shadowy, more interesting way to tell covert stories. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
the code has an
Yeah.
interesting side effect.
That's true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julia.
I'll get you a copy, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tom.
All right. So my next book is Zadie Smith's Dead and Alive essays. So Pynchon is a cornerstone of the Penguin Press List, and Zadie Smith is a cornerstone of the Penguin Press List. And we do, and anytime there's a new Zadie Smith, whether it's a novel or in this case a collection of essays, it's a literary, celebration from us, because she just has, again, like Pynchon, a very distinctive voice. And some would say some people love her novels better than her essays. Some people love her essays, think she's a better essayist than a novelist. So she's just great at all things. And so this is collecting some published and some unpublished essays all in one place. There are book reviews, there are film reviews, there's essays about for some writer friends, Martin Amis, Hilary Mantel, Toni Morrison. The Joan Didion essay is fantastic. Her essay on Tar, the film Tar, was a finalist for the Pulitzer, I think. So that's in here. So she's just one of these people that when you read her essays, she's thinking critically, but always with her, a humanity. And she's always herself. And she makes you, at least for me, she makes me think about art as I'm reading these essays, art in a wholly new way. I love seeing the world through her eyes. So The Fraud was her last novel. That was one of the New York Times 10 best of the year. And I expect, so this is just published yesterday. So reviews are starting to run, and this will be, I'm sure, on many best of the year lists as well. So Zadie Smith's Dead and Alive.
I'm one of those who really loves her essays. I'm an essay kind of person. I like reading essays, and so that's really a treat. And also, I don't not like the novels, but
Yeah.
I love reading. I love reading the essays, and it's a great way of like sort of. You can read one and it's a short amount of time and you get a lot out of it, and you can get in and out and dip in and out kind of a thing. And that's another reason I like it, because all of her skills are on display there in the essay form, and it's thinky, which I really like.
Exactly. And she's a little bit like, not all writers are like this, where you
Right.
want to read her essays, you want to read her stories, and you want to read her novels. In a way, it's a little bit like John Updike used to be, like that same kind of thing. He was responding to art and books and all kinds of things.
I think there might be more. There's probably more writers out there like this, but publishing also, is not, or maybe it's getting different now or becoming different. Who knows? But I think publishers like to be able to say, this is a novelist.
Yes.
This is this is a mystery writer. This is an essayist. This person writes nonfiction. Once you start doing all kinds of things, it gets very confusing.
Yeah, it's true. And Zadie is a very lucky person to be able to write and write and publish anything she wants.
Right.
It's the 25th anniversary of White Teeth, her first novel, which gave her the freedom. The success of that book gave her the freedom to do all things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Another great pick. Thank you, Tom. All right, Lynn. Lynn's got an old favorite she wants to talk about. Speaking of the 80s, which we were.
Speaking of the 80s, Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis, which I read when it first came out. I'm a big fan of Bret Easton Ellis. I've read all of his books, and I just, big fan. I love his writing. Very relevant. This book, Less Than Zero, when it first came out, it was 1987. I'd lived in LA for 3 years. I'm from New Orleans. So just to say, I grew up in a town that prides itself on partying and alcohol and, drugs and all of that. I mean, that's our badge of honor. But Less Than Zero it's about Bret Easton Ellis when he was in high school. Although he has a character, and it's just about these kids who go to an elite school, who grew up in very wealthy Hollywood homes. Parents are in the film business, and it just gives you insight into that world. And he just has a lot. He just really focuses on probably 4 or 5 people that supposedly he went to high school with. But when I first read this, I could not connect. I loved the book. I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe that these kids were in 11th grade and 12th grade, and they go to these parties and the drugs that are involved. And I mean, I just thought it couldn't be true. Even like I said, I'm from New Orleans, so I'm not an innocent. I just did not believe that people their age, even with their access, could exist. And as it turns out, the older I got, probably, this is 1987, and probably around 3 years later, I started meeting people who had gone to school with him, and meeting more people who had grown up in LA, and every one of them said, oh yeah, that was exactly like how we partied. Oh yeah, a perfect representation of the way that we grew up. And I wanted to revisit it. So I revisited it a couple of months ago and read it, and again, absolutely loved it, and thought, obviously, it's been so many years, saw it with a completely different eye. What to me, his Bret Easton Ellis's brilliance is, and what I love so much about his books is, they're embedded in music, art, movies, drugs, and sex. I'm not being reductive. There's much more than that, but that certainly is a lot of Less Than Zero. And I love the way he infuses music and movies and references. And, he refers to the Valley a lot, and the references to this place or that. I just, I find him fascinating. And reading this book a second time, not only am I a grown up now, but knowing that these stories are true, it just blew me away. It was a completely different experience. Loved it equally. So I highly recommend, if you haven't read it, go back to read it. It's still timely. I'm still turning young kids, in their 20s or college kids, I still turn them on to this book a lot, and I get a lot of feedback from it. So anyway,
right?
Love it.
The more things change, the more they stay the same, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
But I also think it's great to revisit some of these older iconic books to look at the difference in style, what was like really cutting edge then, and have a look at the differences. For me, that's super interesting as well. Yeah. So thank you for that, Lynn.
Thank you.
All right, let's start off our last round of the day, Dave.
Okay, thank you. My last pick today is a fantastic and really, really eagerly awaited kids book we've got coming out next week, and this is Xolo. This comes to us from author Donna Barba Higuera. who everyone knows from The Last Quintista and Elevenses. She is a Newbery Award winner, and the book is illustrated by Buenos Aires-based illustrator Mariana Ruiz Johnson. I called this, or earlier I referred to this as like a graphic novel. It is and it isn't. It's heavy on text, but it's completely illustrated on every single page, and the text plays with the illustrations. It almost has a feel of a picture book meets a graphic novel. I'll hold up some examples of the inside in a minute, because it really is what sells this is the visualness. But I'll give you a little recap of what this is about. It is a rousing, thrilling, and a visually stunning retelling of the legendary Aztec legend. It is said that the mighty feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl helped create the earth. He is the hero who was brave enough to steal back the bones of humanity from the evil lord of the underworld. In his quest to bring the humans back to Earth, Quetzalcoatl's dog-headed twin brother, Xolo, was present, who we call Xolo, and that's the title of the book. Not much is known of Xolo, the god of lightning, death, and misfortune, other than that he was a complete monster and terrifying. This is what really happened. And this book seeks to set the legend straight. It's told in the first-person narrative of Xolo. I want to show you the beautiful cover underneath the jacket. It's a first-person narrative from Xolo. He is not a monster. He is not inhuman. He loves humans, and he wants them to come back to the earth. He chooses the attribute of thunder and destruction and death to almost one-up his brother, who's the serpent god, and he always lives in the shadow of his more famous brother, Quetzalcoatl. I'm totally mangling these names, but you get the feeling. And the book is just told in this like remarkable visual style, telling the story of him living in the shadow of his brother, his attempts to one-up him many times and to stand on his own, but also to bring humans back to Earth and repopulate the Earth. His tone as the character is really self-doubting, self-effacing. He's not a monster. He has this sort of remarkable voice that's very relatable and very sweet, because he is not really the god of destruction and death. He chose that to kind of like state his own identity. But the book just goes through the amazing legend. You get these like really, really beautiful dynamic illustrations with these kind of amazing Aztec characters and motifs. It is really colorful, visually dynamic. I don't want to give away what happens. Well, spoiler, humans return to the earth, as we all know. But it's just like a super stunning visual book. This was a lot of fun to sell throughout the season. Every time I pulled this out of my magic satchel, buyers were just like immediately smitten with the style of it, with the color of it, with the character design. They're all kind of whimsical. It's such a heavy, dark story, and it should be so laden with death and horror, but she manages to make it like weirdly endearing, and very sweet and relatable. We're excited because not only, you know, with Donna being a Newbery Award winner, Elevenses and Last Quintista are fully text-based YA books. So this is something more visual from her and a lot more kind of engaging for reluctant readers. For anybody that wants to understand Aztec mythology and folklore. And it's just like really one of the hits of the season for us. I'm really excited for this to land in stores next week. And I think this is going to go into the holiday season with a real bang. So out on Tuesday.
I can't wait to get my hands on a copy of this book. I'm so excited about it. I didn't know anything about it. I'm taking the approach of finding my way into mythologies that I'm not super familiar with, through kids' books, because because that's the great start. You know, I recently was trying to untangle the Navajo emergence myth, for reasons, and it's just really, it's not something I grew up with, and it's very complicated. And I was thinking, wow, a great graphic novel would be awesome to get started with this. So I think that this is perfect, and I'm really excited about it. Really excited about the audience that it's going to find. It's gorgeous. What a good looking book as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm really looking forward to that one. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Julia, what's your last book of the day?
Okay. My last book of the day is a book almost 100 years in the making. It's called The Talisman of Happiness. You can see it's quite a daddy. And this is the most iconic Italian cookbook ever written. You can see it's 680 recipes. It's almost 1,000 pages. This book was originally written in Italy in Italian in 1929. It is the book that Italians have on their bookshelf. It is their, like, the joy of cooking. It's like their, like, book that they all cook from. And this is the first time ever it has been fully translated into English. So there's been bits and pieces of it translated, but this is the first comprehensive and complete translation of this, the sort of bedrock of Italian cooking. And, you know, there's some funny, interesting stories around this book. Number one, the editor of this cookbook also edited a little cookbook called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Samin Nosrat. And as they were working on that book together, Samin Nosrat told him about this book and said, you should go after it. So he's been working on this book for over a decade, trying to get it totally translated. And one of the things that came up at our sales conference when, you know, of course, as soon as this book was presented to me, I was like, well, excuse me, but I need some recipes to cook out of this book. And, you know, they were like, well, it's being translated. And I said, I speak Italian. I'm happy to cook from an Italian cookbook. And they said, well, it has to be translated not just from Italian, but also from basically Italian grandma. Where the measurements were, shall we say, a little bit not uniform. And I said, I have 2 Italian grandparents. I know how to. One of my prized possessions from my grandfather is a recipe that has no measurements and is missing the main ingredient because, and I'll quote, you should know what that is. So they had a big job to translate this. What I'll say about this book, what I think is so special about it, it's not, I mean, it's beautifully designed, it's beautifully laid out, but it's not like a bunch of gorgeous photos. It's actually a bunch of recipes. And what's really interesting is it's a lot of variations. So if you're looking at like the beef, the section on beef, bistecca, right? It's beef all of these different ways and with all of these different ingredients. So I think if you're someone, I mean, I think it's great for a seasoned chef. It's got great ideas. It's got great flavors. You're going to absolutely love it. But also if you are a beginner chef, I think it is a great way to learn how to use different ingredients in your cooking and to learn how to make variations based on what's in your fridge, based on what's at the market on any given week or day. And I think it's just like, it is absolutely a book to come back to time and again. It's a book to sort of savor over. It's a book to experiment with. It is just an absolute phenomenon. It is by far my favorite cookbook of the year, possibly my favorite cookbook of all time. It's really a treasure of a book. So.
Dave is smiling because it's not his cookbook. Amazing.
Sorry, Dave.
No, it's amazing cookbook. No, really, like I think a great gift for yourself. Yeah. And for a gift as well. I think that it's gonna, I mean, it'll be a great book. And it's, and it is especially for people whose grandparents or parents, and in my case was my grandmother also, was not Italian, but cooked the same way. And it was like, how do you make it? Well, you know, this much, and then like this much of that, and then it, okay, sure.
When I asked my grandfather how to make this recipe, it's called bitarelli. It's a broccoli cauliflower fritter. He showed me a bowl and said, this much flour. And I said, oh, okay. So I'm not learning.
Yeah.
I said, oh, all right.
But it helps you get there. These kind of recipes help you get there, and to build the confidence to know like how much that is, you know, like, you know how it should look, right? Everybody knows that.
Exactly.
Great. Exactly. Thank you so much, Julia. All right, Tom, let's wrap it up for the day.
All right. So my last book is Beth Macy's Paper Girl. So this came out a few weeks ago. It is one of my favorite nonfiction books of the season, for sure, if not the year. Beth Macy is most famous for her book Dope Sick, which looked at the opioid crisis in a very deep way that really made a connection in the culture. In Paper Girl, it's both a personal memoir and the usual good reporting that you expect from her. So she grew up in Urbana, Ohio, and she was not from a wealthy family at all, a poor family, in fact, but she was able to get out with a Pell Grant, get a college, leave town, get a college education, become a journalist. But over the last, she would keep going back because her mother was still living there. And she watched Urbana change over the last, say, 30, 40 years. And then when her mother's health really declined in 2020, she was there much more. And she really felt how hardened the place had become. And even though it was home, she's from Urbana, she felt less and less at home. And so this was a book that helped me understand. We all struggle with where we are and why this country is where it is right now. And one of the things this book really brings home, like just from the title, Paper Girl. She was a paper girl. She delivered the local newspaper. Well, there are no more local newspapers. So that alone is one of the things that we've lost that has changed the country, I think. And then so much of the infrastructure, she got a Pell Grant. Pell Grants are I think they're not available anymore. So the way out, those things don't exist. So she's watched Urbana change, in this really profound way, just as the country has changed. I mean, there are heartbreaking stories. There's just unbelievable that her high school boyfriend, who was the most liberal person she knew, is now deep into conspiracy theories. Urbana is very close to Springfield, Ohio, which most of us had never heard of until this last election. And her high school boyfriend was leading the charge against Haitian immigrants. And she's just blown away, puzzled, but she's there to tell this story of this town that helps us understand the larger story. She's a great writer. It's hard to read in many ways, but really beautiful. She finds a young person who she sees as would have like the Beth Macy of right now. So she's also telling that student story. It's a heartbreaker, but this book is fantastic, and I think definitely going to be on a lot of 10 best lists as we get deeper into the holidays. So that's Beth Macy's Paper Girl.
She's such a good writer. And I really Dope Sick. I mean, it's hard to say I loved Dope Sick because
Same here.
It's wrenching. But I really was so involved in that book, and that really has to do with her amazing writing and how she did that. So I'm really looking forward to this one as well. She's just incredibly readable. And you just get drawn right in. So I think you're right. I think this is going to wind up on lists as well. Wow. We went a little bit over time today because we have so many unbelievable books. Like, you weren't kidding when you said you had like bangers this week.
Yes.
Nice. Very, very exciting. Reading list is expanded once again. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of them with us. Dave Ehrlich from Chronicle Books, Julia Callahan from Hachette, and Tom Benton from Penguin. And Lynn had to leave, but thank you, Lynn, for your really cool picks. And thank you, Joey, behind the scenes, doing all the work back there. We will be back again next week with more reps and more fantastic books. We're really in like the season right now for just don't even embarrassment of riches. So many great books. So we'll be back again with more books and more reps. And we hope you will come back and join us then. And in the meantime, everybody have a wonderful week. Happy reading, and good luck. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.